This is Fox Business, and the title of this one intrigued me. Biden falsely claims inflation worse outside the U.S. in Tuesday's speech. Now, where would Biden get that idea? Except, in reality. Let's see what their response is. It's like, or it is again like, it's not worse outside the country. Look, if you have a broken leg and I have a broken thumb, what hurts worse? Your broken leg or my broken thumb? My broken thumb, because it's my broken thumb.
And our top story, stagflation nation. More news that we are suffering inflation at the same time that our economy is coasting downhill. Retail,
which is not what stagflation is, but okay.
Sales numbers came in far less than expected. We were expecting a rise in month-to-month figures. Instead, they were down 0.3.
Oh no, the U.S. Commerce Department, these are their numbers, but they didn't meet expectations. By the way, do you want to put up what May retail sales are down? Do you want to put up hospitality and whether it's going up or not? It is summer after all. Do you want to look at, how about put up the movie ticket sales? Nah, that'll fuck your narrative.
3%. And the Fed's New York manufacturing number was even worse. We were expecting a 3% increase. Well, instead, as you can see, it was down 1.2%. And of course, no one needs to be reminded about the horrible inflation figures, except perhaps the president. Now, President Biden is in a bizarre state of denial.
Oh my God, he is? He doesn't think the 2020 election was rigged, does he?
About both the slowing economy and inflation.
All right, well, let's see. Let's see what his numbers are.
Here he is yesterday making a comment about inflation that needs some fact-checking. Listen.
All right, let's do it.
Under my plan for the economy, we've made extraordinary progress. And we put America in a position to tackle a worldwide problem that's worse everywhere but here, inflation.
Well, in point of fact, here is the reality that Biden...
Yeah, that's not how you do it, asshole. That's year over year. You're doing it again, son. You're not comparing it to wage growth. You're not comparing it to what's actually available there. This is goofy, but okay, we'll see what they're going to do.
Biden's just trying to sweep under the rug. Inflation, as you can see in the U.S.
Yeah, those are percentage rates based on the baseline of those particular countries.
U.S. is higher.
Yeah, and our recovery has been quicker. We're selling and buying more things than those other countries.
Than all the major European economies, despite what the president...
By the way, there is no... If you'll notice, curiously enough, while he had a citation figure, the Chamber of Commerce, for example, he is not putting a citation figure under these percentages. Why? Because they all come from different sources. And they all relate to different baselines.
The president said the reality of inflation and a slowing economy is not lost on average Americans who are having a hell of a time right now just making ends meet. And small...
I think you're right. I think we do need another stimulus because we artificially thought we were out of COVID and we're absolutely not. No, that's not where you're going?
Business
child income tax credit or the child tax credit? No, you're gonna.
Businesses in America are overwhelmed by...
How would this be considered misinformation or disinformation? Well, in this particular case, you'd have to assume that this guy knows what the fuck he's talking about normally to decide whether it's disinfo. More than likely, it's misinformation because he's just carrying forward bad information that he was given. It's disinfo when you create a graphic. Whoever made this graphic is disinfoing. This asshole might just be misinfoing. That's how complicated it is.
By inflation, a slew of new regulations and the threat of higher taxes.
Slew of new regulations.
Now the Fed...
Inflation is driven by the threat of higher taxes.
Appears to be sending at least some kind of a message with a 75 basis point rate hike, but with the president in a state of denial...
What difference does it make? He has no control over that part of it anyways. Do you agree with the Fed, you might as well fly. The Fed raising the interest rate 75 basis points, 0.75%. Do you agree with that? Say so. Put your name on it next to that. That's good or bad on the board. I want to see it.
We really have to gird our loins for a tough ride ahead, particularly since he...
Gird our loins? Nasty.
Remains determined to make matters worse with new regulations, new taxes, and price controls on domestic energy production as part of his exceptional transition to a green new world.
Also, price controls on those things would lower the prices of oil and gas, it would seem.
For more, we bring in former OMB director and president of Center for Renewing America, Russ Vought, and Bulltech Capital Markets chief market strategist, Catherine Rooney-Vera. Great to see you both. Thanks for being here.
Yes, I'm so excited to I've never seen either of these people before. The Center for Renewing America and her office, where she is a executive vice principal of Mean Girls Elementary in Economawalk.
Russ, I want to come to you. No matter what the Fed does, can we get out of stagflation with a president who's in denial of reality?
I don't see how. I mean, this administration
I don't see how, but then, of course, I'm a senior fellow at idon'tseehow.org.
is at war with the American economy, with their energy policy, with their regulatory policy.
Which has no impact on any of the supply shock issues that we're seeing so far.
Today, if they were given an opportunity, if they were given Joe Manchin's vote, they would pass trillions of dollars of increased spending. They wouldn't think twice about it. And this is something you've been very...
Right, but that would actually put more money into the system. And right now we have a liquidity issue that's causing this.
Dogged about is articulating the fact that they have no change. There's been no pivot in this administration. All they've done is blame the Fed or say that this is...
They didn't blame the Fed. He just said it's a worldwide problem and we're handling it better than the rest of the world. There was no blame the Fed business.
The Fed's problem to solve. Thankfully, the Feds began to do that today.
So you agree that is the Fed's problem to solve. If the Fed agreed to start doing it, then they were fucking right.
But I don't think when you have an administration that this is out of touch, particularly in the energy
that is out of touch
front, that we're ever going to be able to truly get and have that kind of soft landing that the Fed's trying to accomplish.
No. So they put this at the Fed. They say, part of the mandate of the Fed is maximum employment and keeping inflation in check. You're saying that is part of their mandate, but by bringing that part of it up, and the Fed actually acting more aggressively than people even thought they were going to do, that's the right thing to do, but the Biden administration saying that's what they should do makes them wrong. What the shit?
Well, the Fed did make a significant move today, Catherine, but
which is what we called for.
They have a credibility problem because...
Oh, okay. The Fed has okay. So the thing you asked for, when the Fed did it, now they have a credibility problem. What the hell is going on at Fox Business?
Here's what Powell was saying just a month ago. Roll tape.
So 75 basis point in an increase is not something the committee is actively considering. What we are doing is we raised 50 basis points today.
Now, Biden had a meeting with him, and then he raised it 75 basis points. Both of you assholes think it's a good idea. So the idea is that if you put all of this information together, that Powell and everybody was thinking about a 50 basis points, and Biden talked him into an even sharper rise.
I know a lot can change in a month, but that's what he said just 1 month ago. So first talk about the credibility.
Yeah, and you do realize the war is ongoing and that Europe is going to shun Russian oil. They made those decisions in that time. That the Ukrainian war is still happening. People are fighting and dying right now. And a good portion of European oil and gas is severed or cut off or is slowing to a trickle, which is going to affect the economy and the continuation of that. Whereas they might have tried a half, like 50 basis points to boost it a little bit and sort of teeter it and do 3 of them over the course of the year. What he said is, instead, we're going to do 75 basis points probably again in July and then 25 basis points in the fall. And hopefully that will slide people back into investing into the stock market again after a bumpy summer when nobody does that shit anyways.
Credibility problem that the Fed has. And then talk about what changed. What has changed in that month?
Here's a good idea. Why don't all 3 of you go on record as whether you thought it was a good idea, and then we know whether you're talking out of your ass. And if so, why don't you just turn around and do it?
The crazy thing, David, is the Fed, in increasing 75 basis points, is trying to claw back some inflation fighting credibility because they've really lost it.
Oh, so by doing what you argue Biden is asking them to do, they are trying to claw back credibility that they had lost by not acting fast enough based on what Biden was asking them to do. Son of a bitch. I mean, the Volcker myth is stupid anyways, and the Fed doesn't print money, and the problem is that the Fed raises and lowers points not because of its true impact on the market, but how the markets react.
I'll add to what you said.
By the way, every single one of these assholes a year and a half ago, or even pre-COVID, we're talking about get ready for a correction. The market's we haven't had a correction. There's going to be a correction in the market, which means a huge drop in the market.
A year ago, the Fed was saying the labor market still needed support.
A year ago, the labor market did need support, fucko. We didn't even have, we weren't even through Delta at that point.
There is no wage price spiral, and that inflation was temporary in nature.
They said transitory, not temporary. And transitory can be a multi-year process, not just a couple of months. It also didn't factor in Russia attacking Ukraine apropos of fucking nothing and affecting world food and energy markets.
And they were...
It's weird. It's almost like shit changed since last August. That's so weird. How is that even possible?
Relentless in their assertion that inflation was temporary. We knew then, and we know
transitory
now that it in fact is not. It's not Putin's fault. It's certainly endemic in nature.
Oh, if it's endemic, I guess instead of pandemic, it's just an American thing. Also, inflation is something we're going to have. High inflation or an exaggerated inflation year over year based on previous estimations is a temporary thing. There's no situation where nobody believes America's going to have 8.6 to 10.5% inflation forever. Nobody believes that. Like I said, deflation's right around the corner. Inventories are backed up. The price rise that's happened is killing itself.
And unfortunately, David, the only thing that I think is going to take inflation back down to reasonable, even Fed target levels, which, by the way, is 2%.
Which is unreasonable. But let me guess. Drilling in Anwar, Keystone XL. You're going to have to let businesses do what they do best.
Is unfortunately economic contraction.
Oh, okay. So that's what she's talking about. She thinks that the Fed has to take money out of the system. She's one of these print money, shred money assholes.
And I think that's where we're going. The question is, how soon will it happen? And I think to answer that, David, we need to watch the labor market and see when and if that turns and rolls over.
Right. By the way, turns and rolls over means rising employment and rising wages bad. Never mind our integration with the world markets and the idea that we could have increased labor participation, increased wages. But the idea is that as that goes up, that's what drives prices up because people got more money to spend and then they spend it. And the money even though the dollar is pegged on so many things worldwide that keep it stable, but it doesn't allow you to, from a corporate earnings standpoint, a lot of, like the big Walmarts of the world, there's not as much of a margin. There's talk right now of a profits recession. I shit you not, because as much as everybody believes that there's price gouging going on, and there certainly is in certain areas, a lot of it's just a supply issue. And reshoring that supply is becoming an increasingly larger amount of the cost of shit that you get because IKEA is moving factories that they might have had in China to the Czech Republic. And that takes time, that takes money. The wage costs are different. There's education, teaching people how to use the machines and build that stuff up. And that time squeezes the availability of the product and therefore raises the cost. If they want to get it out faster, they have to increase output at the same time they're doing all the rest of this shit. That's happening worldwide. And that's what reshoring is actually doing. It's actually a good thing, but it's going to be expensive as you do it.
Russ,
thank you, Narg. I appreciate it.
Catherine is a brilliant economist. She makes great sense, but I would argue with her on one point.
What is that? Did she? I'm sorry. Did she make a point?
I'll give you a chance to get back into that, Catherine. But first to Russ, I think you can solve inflation. You really can.
What is it? Drill in Anwar, release oil. We need more oil and gas. It's oil and gas. We just need to pump oil and stuff, even though it gets sold on the world market and there's 5 million barrels per day removed from the market because of Russia, and it would just go out into the world supply, and we'd still have to compete for those prices. And we're basically at 2018. We're like, let's see, let's look at it. Well, before this, I know this where this asshole is going. So let's see, oil production, U.S. Let's see, monthly crude oil. I'm gonna try to look at the EIA rate. Click on this, you silly slow thing. There's a lag in everything that I'm clicking on. Come here. I don't know why that's open link in a new tab. All right, didn't want to do that. Yeah, here you go. There you go. Monthly crude oil and natural gas production. Here's from like, here's where we were. Here's 2014 price when the price went up like crazy. Remember that? About 8,000. Sorry, is that? Yeah, 8 million barrels per day, something like that. And then we went to 9, and then we got all the way up. We're rising and doing this stuff. And by the way, you can see this trend. There's a trend and a hump. When Trump got elected in the election year, there was a little bit of a lag as production went down during that time. But it was way down here in 2013. When America was dissolving into nothingness and had no future and all that stuff. Oh, you don't remember that? Yeah, it was true. And then here we are in 2020, and then it falls off a cliff. This is the trend line. It's a bumpy trend line, but it's there. And then it drops down to here, and then it's jagged, but it's headed right back to where it was. But it's still, we're basically at, where are we? We're now getting back to 2019. November 20. Let's see, we'll go back further. I would say August 2018 numbers. That's where we are as far as production. Before COVID. And then, like I said, look at this trend. This trend doesn't give a shit. Look it up, going up. Here's Obama. Here's the election year. There's a bunch of bullshit going on. And then it starts rising up again. And then it drops. And then it'll jag it through this because there's Delta and, or whatever. This is the, like COVID and yeah, that's basically Delta. And then it's starting to irk its way back up there. And currently it's at 11 million barrels a day. Is that where we are? So that takes us back to about October 2018. That's where we are. We're and it's trending upward. It's not leveling out. As a matter of fact, there was a big there was this dip and then spike, and a lot of that's just that, and that's the availability of the stuff. And then we'll look at refining. I just want to see if that's where he's going.
By looking at the other side, not just the Fed side, not just the supply, the demand side.
But the supply side.
Increase supplies, open up the production gates, give incentives to all the companies, including, of course, energy companies, to produce more, and therefore
the volume of stuff that's available. And by the way, what do you mean produce more? I mean, obviously, there's some oil capacity and natural gas capacity that can come out of the ground. A lot of that's about getting workers and getting people back online and recovering from 2020, and that's a natural part of it. It's just taken a long time to ramp back up to that. What the fuck do you think they're putting together? And also, while they're reshoring factories from China, Shanghai's fucking shut down, asshole. So is Shenzhen. So is Beijing. These lockdowns aren't going to stop anytime soon. They're busy moving their factories out of those fucking countries. You can't raise production when the ports and the cities that you do them in overseas are completely shut down. What incentive will get the Chinese government to open the ports in Shanghai over here? What? Are you going to deregulate? Basically, if there's anything to this, what he's pissed about is the American tariffs on Uyghur slave labor. That's the only difference you could possibly make in what he's talking about. Everywhere else, there's no hold back on fucking production in this country. Ask Mike Lindell. You think anything's slowing down? He's backed up. He's got too many fucking pillows to sell. Inventories are stacked, you dumbass.
Bring prices down. Isn't that a solution if we're...
No. And by the way, how do you make that happen? How do you make gas companies who know that oil prices are going to crater once things normalize in the next, 8 to 10 months, and it's going to suck the air out of their business once again after they just got over 2020 where their product costs less than it just to exist. You had to pay $36 a barrel just to get it out of your hands, because if you shut oil pipelines down and you shut down the actual rigs themselves, they freeze up over time. They have to keep producing once they start. It's like Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber when he's peeing in the bottles. I can't stop once I start. It stings. Is that baseline enough argument for you? Hold on. Let's continue it. Let's see what this asshole says.
We're looking for one.
Yeah, that's what I
totally.
would be trying to do if I was.
Yeah, I'd totally be trying to do that. I would like, how much do I pay you to give away?
In the administration, in a Republican administration, is I'd be arguing for those very type of policies. Let's get this economy growing with.
Really? So you would argue against Trump's trying to stop oil prices from going down and signing a deal with Saudi Arabia and Russia and Mexico and the OPEC countries to lower production, since you know that all the other costs Americans deal with are predicated on that's profit American companies don't get the more they have to pay for fuel.
A real energy policy that's not at war with energy producers.
We're not. Why? All right. Why would Exxon, ConocoPhillips, and Chevron's if prices are going through the roof and energy costs are going crazy and profit margins are awesome, why the fuck would these be down? Chesapeake Oil and BP PLC, they're up at what, a 16th, half a percentage point? This is just a little over 6. This is just shuffles. This isn't even in the fucking margins. Chevron's down 2 points. You think that's because they're underproducing?
And envisions the fact that we actually have people in this economy that use energy, and we don't.
That's so weird.
Want to make it so.
Yeah, the Green New Deal, and also bad, and solar is terrible. Blah blah. It has nothing to do with it. Look next to you, fucko.
Hard for them to be able to get off the ground and small businesses accordingly. So I think that's absolutely the case. And I think
small businesses, yeah, it's the small oil companies that are being snuffed out.
The Fed
Thank you,
has
Cosmic
more work
Rose.
to do, and I was glad that I agree that the notion that their main credibility problem is the fact that no one believes that Jay Powell.
That's a terrible. It's a terrible visual, sir.
Is an inflation hawk, and this very, very.
Nobody believes that Jay Powell is an inflation hawk. Nobody believes it. Just CNBC. Let's see. Let's see. I literally just saw I don't want to get off of these. Yeah, this is January. Hold on. I want to get the newest one. Let's go to news. Oh, by the way, Bank of England says inflation will hit 11% after raising interest rates to 13-year high as it happened. Yeah. Did Biden just say that it's worse elsewhere than it is here? And by the way, They mocked that statement and yet have not answered it. They literally are saying, we need to turn shit through. We got to make it happen. You can't. They're basically talking like Don Jr. Maybe they will. Let's see.
Timed sequence no one really believes is going to be able to get it under control. Today was a step in the right direction. I think they've got a lot further to go.
Now,
okay, so today, after Biden met with Powell and they decided to be more hawkish after he met with Joe Biden, it's a step in the right direction. Motherfucker.
Catherine, I asked you what changed between the time Powell said just a month ago
he had a meeting with Biden
that he wasn't going to raise 75 basis points and now. And of course, it's that Biden has done just about everything wrong.
Oh, is that it? Like what? Passing an infrastructure bill?
I mean, he's gone totally against the idea of producing more by threatening producers, not just energy producers, but, meat producers. I mean, you name it.
I can't because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Biden has threatened meat producers?
He's pointing.
He's what? What the fuck?
The finger at all the producers.
Yeah, he's pointing the finger at all the producers and saying what? Produce less? Too much?
And he's going in exactly the opposite direction.
What? All right, this is just gibberish.
Now, Donald Trump, I talked to him about 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. Did he tap you on the head after he was done?
Said he could turn things around pretty quickly on the
Oh, yeah, and you believed him. I mean, that's enough. That's good enough for me. He said that, did he?
Inflation front by increasing, getting back to energy independence.
We are energy independent.
Opening the spigots, et cetera. But I'm just
opening the spigots. By hand, would he go down and turn the actual... No, I'm an oil man, and this is my boy.
Wondering in 2 years, so much damage can happen. It's not going to be easy to turn this around.
Again. Look at them pointing out that, look, it dropped. And meanwhile, it's up here. Yeah, because fucking Bitcoin people are losing their fucking shirt. And they're getting out of the market to pay their goddamn bills.
Around, is it?
No, it's not. And
I'll finish up this video and then I'm out.
You're talking about
so thank you for the warning,
side,
guys.
Which is.
By the way, you're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. This isn't normally like the stuff I cover, and the intellectual capacity of these people is so low. It's the kind of stuff I expect to see on Rumble, and this is Fox's business channel.
Energy and food prices, and certainly if we were to reopen the pipelines, were we
the pipelines. More on the pipeline doesn't affect how much oil is being produced. And it's Canadian oil going to market.
To take the handcuffs in terms of regulation off of the oil producers and make the
Which regulations are we talking about? Which part? Drilling deep wells next to aquifers? Drilling in the Great Lakes, oil rigs on school grounds. What the fuck regulations are you talking about?
U.S. energy independent and a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, to be reckoned with. For the record, I just showed you guys that like oil production or whatever. It's the same fucking arc it's been on. It was set back by COVID, and it's getting back on its feet.
And not be vulnerable to foreign, really enemy states for our energy needs. I mean, the fact that we're knocking on the door of Venezuela when we could be importing from our friendly neighbor Canada in the north.
I know.
We're not importing from them, and we're not importing from Venezuela. We're trying to get their stuff on the market to lower the price worldwide.
I know.
Because even still, although we have plenty of oil for our citizenry, if we decided to nationalize it, you fucking commies, you still would have a situation where the suppliers, the people who buy or who make stuff overseas that we buy at a lower price and sell in the United States that contributes to the cost of things, those things overseas, they're still paying that higher oil price. That's baked into the cost of the goods, whether they're fucking made here or not.
Just atrocious to me, but I think that's a supply side. So even if you Strip out oil and gas prices and food prices, David, core PCE, which is the metric the Fed most looks at, is still really, really high. It's about
it's weird. It's almost like we went through a pandemic and the rest of the world is lagging behind us, and we get a lot of our shit from overseas and they're not up to capacity again. And China's removing itself from the production of the world in the same way that Russia's removing its oil from the world, and that might have an effect on prices.
Above 6%, and the target is 2%. So the fact that the Fed kept juicing the labor market for such a long period of time.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's too many people working, you lazy fuckers.
I think really
puts
us in a position where salaries and pressures in the demand front are really the hard thing to really bring down.
Yeah, but we got to do it, guys. You guys are making too much money. You workers out there, you're making too much money. And it's too many demands, and you got too many choices in the job world. We need to remove some of those choices, capsize some of those companies so that people don't have to compete across the labor market and pay you guys more, because it's driving the cost of eggs up, which it isn't.
Without economic contraction. So
exactly what she's saying is the Fed needs to choke the wages out of people.
Inflation is here to stay. I think it's sticky and structural in nature.
Oh, okay, so it's not Biden's fault, and you guys are just talking out of your ass.
And
it's structural in nature. Fucking hell.
I think you see that inflation expectation. So the Fed has really put its own self in a very difficult corner. The federal government, I'll add, has also contributed to this inflationary
well, she certainly knows what network she's on.
Spiral with double-digit fiscal deficits.
Yes.
Trillion.
Double-digit moron. It was a triple-digit deficit under Trump. Biden cut the deficit in half. Less than half. It was like 180 in Trump's last year, or 66 last year. Double-digit. So the triple-digit one under Trump was fine. That was good economic policy.
Upon $1 trillion of stimuli.
Yes, because we were in a pandemic. They didn't just do it for the fuck of it. And by the way, infrastructure does not count in that area.
That was meant to target COVID, even when it was happening.
Oh,
David,
and it went
this is
so
never
far
going to be
beyond
retraced.
that.
Yeah, this was just a payout to Democratic voters. This was just people being lazy. We're just paying people to not work. And that's how they
absolutely
basically just UBI for the plebes.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Beyond that, the first Biden, the Rescue America plan was more about establishing democratic principles of policies. But Russ,
oh yeah, like what?
You know that we used.
Yes, one of the Democratic policies of not letting people starve to death while we get a vaccine system on its feet that had not been planned, and getting us out of Afghanistan at the same fucking time. That qualifies.
To have something, I used to cover Latin America, and Latin America had a lot of enterprise zones. Remember those? The maquiladoras, they call them in Mexico, but places where you would have no taxes and no regulations. I think.
Yeah, that worked out well. There's a lot of places in Mexico that have no regulations.
What we need, what we're going to need after
is basically cartel kidnap zones in Texas and Arizona and New Mexico.
After 2 more years of this in America is one big enterprise zone. We're going to have a massive, we're going to have to turn this whole country into an enterprise zone to get it moving again, no?
No, we are, and that's what is
yeah, really, it is. It's just of course,
vitally needed. And regulations don't just get cut overnight. It takes a long time to cut regulations.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's only been a year and a half, and Biden's cut some, but there's still some left over from the Trump era. What the fuck are you talking about?
And to reverse the damage of this,
like which one? Name. You know how they always say regulations, and all these people, like, this is always a refrain. I bring up some stuff that constantly sticks in my craw, whether it's production on some of these shows, or it's the arguments coming from the hyper right that we see all the time. And if you'll notice, when I do bring them up, there are a couple of details along with them that I will kind of pin next to them. This thing sucks, and here's a couple of examples exactly
administration. And so,
and yet they're like, regulations are such a problem. I mean, who gives a shit if we lose a couple of babies from salmonella? I mean, it's really slowing I mean, you gotta, if we want to get baby formula back out as quick as possible, you can't make an omelet without breaking some babies, you know?
we got to get at that work as soon as we possibly can. And
Get at that work as soon as we possibly can.
hopefully the American people send the cavalry to be able to change the political makeup in such a way that we can get this administration out of office so that we can have the stranglehold on the economy over with and we can begin growing again.
By the way,
Yeah, the stranglehold on the, caused by supply chains in our global supply chain that's spread all over and collapsing because of COVID and, actual life. Maybe we can get some new politicians in there and they'll react to reality in a different way.
is Renewing America, is the Center for Renewing America coming?
Is it a joke or are you fucking kidding? Did you guys laugh when you came up with that name? It sounds like the eunuch version of MAGA.
Up with blueprints, specific blueprints that the
No, we just have a blue wall.
next administration, whether they're Democrat or Republican, can immediately put in place?
Gee, it's almost like that was the tee up in the agreement for him to be on the show.
We are. In fact, we're working on a budget to be able to get a handle on our fiscal house in order, to be able to extend.
Yes, and it'll be here in 2 weeks.
And the tax cuts. We're working with Larry on this, and these are the things that we
Not Larry.
think are necessary.
Oh, Kudlow? Fuck me.
To give a Republican administration in a Republican Congress.
Yeah, it happened in 1980. I remember the Heritage Foundation had a blueprint for what the new administration, the Reagan administration, could do.
And then in 2 years, they had the highest spike in inflation, full 6 points higher than where we are right now with no pandemic preceding. Maybe the Heritage Foundation's plan was actually their pandemic. You know how many times I've said, where was the pandemic that preceded the last giant spike in inflation that we've dealt with? And it's really just oil prices jagging all over the fucking place. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was the Heritage Foundation's plan that fucked the whole country, spiked inflation, and then sent us into a recession.
That blueprint was put into effect, and
2 years later, we were in a recession.
we turned things around. Of course, we went through an awful recession.
Right. As soon as they put it in place, we went through an awful recession, and we had to change course. But
because they delayed the tax cuts, but once those tax cuts kicked in, so did America, and we could do it again. Russ, Catherine, wonderful to see you both. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for helping laymen feel smarter than they actually are by taking complex economic ideas and fucking them up so bad that even other people are like, what the? Like, I don't know shit about shit, but that's ridiculous.